I know about half the people in the room, and the other half I hope to know by the end of the evening. And that's the way Roy McDonald would be too. He knows half the people in London, and he'll know the other half by the end of the evening. Roy is a collector. He collects old toys, he collects books, he collects art, he collects people. He collects people in his heart. And many's the time I've been strolling down Richmond Row with Roy or sitting in a park, and he will not only tell me, as he's introducing me to someone, their name, but also what they do, where they went to school, what they took, the name of their dog. Roy has a phenomenal memory, but he has a phenomenal memory for things he wants to remember and people he wants to remember. As you all know, you've all been touched by him, either literally or figuratively, over the years. A little poem for Roy. Sinner, saint, savior, sophist, sophisticate, singer, sage, storyteller, a lover of words, images, philosophies, quotes, notes, and totes. 2 bags he totes, filled with gold, golden ephemera, a collection of the wisdom of the ages, in his hands and in his head. And anything he has to share, he shares with everyone. If you talk to him about any topic, he's got a book in his bag he pulls out, he's got a flyer, he's got a poster. I don't think you could ever fluster him. He'll have something to talk about. And he'll have a sacred souvenir stone for you to keep and cherish as well. If you ask him about his life, he has a 30-minute, a 60-minute, and a 90-minute version. He is a matchmaker of kindred souls, finding people of like minds, and bringing them together to introduce them and tell them what they have in common with each other. He's a rascal, he's a rogue, and he's proud of it. And his past history as a drunkard, some people would sweep under the carpet, but he's made a literary living out of it. And I can tell you, well, he'll tell you, that he's been sober for many decades. And he turned his life around with his friends, with himself, and has become the peer that we share today. He is an icon of London, and he is a walking, talking beard. As a matter of fact, the play written about him was called Beard, and I was privileged to sit beside him during the first run on the first night and watch somebody play him and see his reactions. Then when they remounted it, I got to sit beside him again and watch somebody else do him. And I gotta say that Roy back there does the best Roy McDonald I've ever seen. He does Roy better than anybody else I know. Yeah, you can give a hand for that. He is the best man for the job. On the back table there's a book written about somebody just like Roy. It was based on Roy, Pocket Man, written by Don Bell. There's also a book he wrote, Living a London Journal. Since he's been a journal writer all his life, he took 7 days of his journal and printed it. The Answer Questioned, his pun poem, which goes on for many, many, many pages. I've interviewed him on my television show at least a dozen times, and the same on my radio show. And Roy has always been a good guest, and he's always had great stories to tell. I've always been privileged to be with him during the storytelling evening in London as well. I hosted his birthday, his 50th birthday. We had it at the Latin Quarter, if you remember that. And we had 50 people with giant candles, each one representing a year of Roy's life. Roy has breathing problems, but he decided that he was going to go around the whole party and blow out each and every one of those candles by himself. It nearly killed him, but he really wanted to do it. So he succeeded in blowing out all the candles. We had a great time at his 50th birthday, so much so he invited me back to host his 75th birthday 2 years ago, which we did downtown. And Roy's already booked me for his 80th birthday if I live that long. So, Roy, I'm going to stick around just so I can host your 80th birthday. He's a regular every month at our Socrates Cafe, and he really is a wise old man of London. But he's still the world's oldest teenager. Never mind Dick Clark. The world's oldest teenager is Roy McDonald. He's also the oldest living laugh guard. He's performed for us at many medieval feasts and special events. And he's also a street performer. If you want to find him, you don't know where to find him, just check out in front of Joe Cool's on a Friday or Saturday night. He's out there doing his poetry or his best Johnny Cash impersonation. There's so much more that each of us has to say about Roy McDonald. We'll have to do an evening about that. But he also has many documentaries out about him on the internet. You can go to his page, read all about Roy, and see all about his adventures. And I would like to invite my friend to the stage of many, many years, Mr. Roy McDonald.
After that wonderful introduction, I'm almost speechless. Not totally, but almost. And that was, thank you very much. And I want to thank Stan for holding this very wonderful event for 2 years, the third year now. And he's done a great job. And I also want to thank Kevin back there for a wonderful in-depth interview he did of me for this event. I want to thank Mykonos, Heidi, for having this in this wonderful place. It brings back so many happy memories. I want to thank Jeff for his music, his playing, his performing, and his kind words. And I want to thank Joan for the introduction. It was great. And what I'm going to do before I start my poetry, I want to say that I've been doing this for hundreds of times in London, Toronto, Montreal, Windsor, all over the place. And no matter how many times I do this kind of thing, I'm still nervous when I'm up here. I still goof. I still get things screwed up. And people say, you do, but you've been doing it for so long. Well, that's true, but no matter how many times I do it, I'm always nervous before and during my performance.
That's okay, Roy.
I have your permission? Okay. Now, but no, the reason I'm saying this is not as an excuse. The reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people I know at an open mic night like this are afraid to get up and recite or read their poetry. They say, well, maybe it isn't good enough, or I stumble, or I'm nervous and I don't know what to say, and so on. Come on up and do it, no matter how nervous you are. No matter if you stumble here and there, that's fine too. Just do it. We'd like to hear you, and this is a very warm, very appreciative audience. So the more the better that come and read your poetry and get people into what you've done. It's a very, very wonderful venue for doing this. I'm going to start off with something that you can hear me okay, everybody?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. Should I? Okay. I'm not going to read and recite poetry in any particular order here. I'm going to start off with something that's funny. It's my pun poem, a long pun poem. And this has never been done before, by the way. There's no long pun poem book out there. And this is there's philosophical puns here, psychological puns, literary puns, corny puns. It's not the ultimate in puns, it's sort of the penultimate in a way. Actually, if I was in the States, if I was in America, they'd probably bring me before the Pan-American Activities Committee. And there I'd be punished. However, I'll start off with
Did you say
this.
corny or porny?
Pardon?
Did you say corny or porny?
I'm a little. Speak a bit louder,
Knowing
old
Roy,
man.
it's probably both.
And this is me as a laugh guard, doing my Merlin, the magician, routine. And Bill Paul has fond memories of the time. Well, we won't talk about that. When I was thrown out of the. Yeah. I've been thrown out of many places actually in my lifetime. This is called The Answer Question. Now, I've showed this to a lot of people over the years. I showed it to Leonard Cohen when I met him, and he liked it. He really enjoyed it. In fact, I think he smiled a couple of times when he read it. I'm not sure. I'm not, but I think there's a little bit, Anyway, he said he enjoyed it. And I dedicated this book to Gray Curnow, who is a close friend of mine, one of my closest friends. He was my oldest friend, actually. We grew up together. He remembered meeting me. He met me when he was 3 years old. I was 2.5, and he remembered meeting me as if I'd known him all his life. And I said, for Gray Curnow, an appreciation of friendship and hospitality over the years, unique contributions to the London region, and stimulating encouragement for my writing endeavors. So I just want to celebrate Gray Curnow. This is it. The answer question. Taboo or not taboo? That is not the question. To boo or not to boo? Is that the question? To be, B-E-E, or not to be? That is only the question for a bumbling bee who believes his hive to simply be in the flower of his youth. I drone on and on. Meanwhile, night cometh when no bee worketh. He just buzzeth. Om, 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 a mystic bee. Could this be a mistake? But here I am, being a misty, dewy mystic, called by Saint Teresa of Avila and Meister Eckhart to attain the Word. In the beginning was the Word in, and the Word was with Goddo, G-O-D-O, and the Word was Goddo, and it's all on Kraft's last tape for us to decipher, if we have the time of our life, loosely spoken. And Goddo spelled backwards is "O dog," because he was a Saint Bernard. And thereon hangs the tale. All this makes no sense, you say, and you are right. But was Frank Lloyd right about architecture? The Arc de Triomphe, Noah's Ark, and Joan of Arc. That is the burning question. Things are not what they appear. But back to sense. This all makes sense. Actually, it is a dollars and cents proposition. Ouch! I just cut myself trying to shave with Occam's razor. And cut being into non-being and being. But then again, so did Goddo. But here I am, or am I here, wandering around in the wasteland with Mr. Kurtz and the Hollow Men, looking for the heart, H-A-R-T, of darkness, at a stag party. At this here stag film of two deer copulating. All this comes from trying to say two opposite things at the same time, and both saying them and not saying them. And Newton said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Jesus Christ, you could see for miles. All this is pointless. But so is the needle that how many angels could dance on. Let us fill the whole in being, the whole of being, with holy water. Back to Bach and the lost chord, which was the umbilical cord, according to the Geneva Accords. We must face the music, even as we look Bach in anger, with the Wizard of Oz and Harriet. People just don't appreciate the classics. They've gotten Offenbach. Get off and buy box, switch on Bach and float downstream, riding the waves like a ping pong ball. Repeat after me as a Zen koan, even if you don't know if you're Cohen or Cohen. Carmen or Cohen. Santa Claus does not exist. But even if Santa Claus did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. Because most contracts have stipulations in them that you have to be sane for the contract to be valid. So you need a sanity clause. Ho, ho, ho. Ho Chi Minh. Meanwhile, out on Highway 401, the rabbits have just eaten up all the clover leaves. And you still don't know what's happening, do you, Mr. Dillon? My telephone just started ringing. Sounds like King Solomon's ring. However, it's all relative. He's my great uncle. But some things are more relative than others, like my parents, especially when the bird of paradise defecates on your head. Back to the Garden of Eden, where God broke up the first crap game in history by taking away Adam and Eve's paradise. And Satan was making snake eyes, which brings to my mind the earthworm, because all the animals went into Noah's Ark, except the worms. They went in apples. Well, I just think I bit off more than I can chew. Chew, a chew, goose, gooseuntide. But as Maharishi says, LSD is LSD, and deep transcendental meditation is deep transcendental meditation. Tee. The other day I walked into my bank and asked the manager if I could speak to the loan arranger. He said, I'm sorry, the loan arranger isn't in. Would you like to speak to Tonto? I said, okay, where's Tonto? He said, I don't know, but I think he might be about 120 miles from London in his TP or not TP. That is the question. Bill Paul referred to the play about me called Beard. And Jason Ripper wrote the play, actually wanted me to play myself in the play. And I declined. I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't think I can do myself justice. Anyway, I played a cameo of myself at the end of the play. And he liked what I did so much that he wanted me to be in his next play called Core, another downtown London play. And I said, I don't want a small part. I said, I want a big part. He said, I want you to play God. I said, well, no, like if I start playing my acting career by playing God, where do I go from there? It's downhill all the way. Anyway, I'm going to do a few short poems, and I'm going to do one poem for a dear friend of mine who couldn't make it here tonight. She's on Vancouver Island, and she just wasn't able to come. Sheila Martindale. And Sheila, a wonderful poet, a wonderful human being, and a dear friend. And I wrote this poem. She was in Victoria Hospital a number of years ago, and I thought of getting her a get well soon card for the poet. But then I thought I'd write her a get well soon poem. And for you, those of you who know Sheila, you can understand this better than those of you who don't know her. But a lot of you do know her and appreciate her. And it's a takeoff on a Rose, It's a Rose, It's a Rose by Gertrude Stein. Playful. Get well soon poet for Sheila in Victoria. A rose is a rose, is a rose. So arise and arouse. I wrote a short poem for a woman that I was very close to many, many years ago. Many years ago. She was 18 when I met her. And in many ways she was like a mature adult, in other ways like a mixed up kid. So I called her child woman in the poem. For a rose, you touch my dreams with your gentleness, beautiful child woman, child and woman. In your aloneness you reach out to me, wounding me with your tears, warming me with your smiles, caressing me with the mystery of your being. Child woman, I have known you longer than forever. Or Denise, you send me, honest you do, honest you do. Where? To the health food store, to the coffee house, to the folk festival, to the art gallery, to the library, to the museum, to the theater, to your studio, anywhere where I may touch and see and hear and smell and taste the beautiful things of this holy earth. That was a okay. The next poem is called The Girl in the Red Coat, for Mary Burke, another good friend of mine, a poet. And she's an only child. I'm an only child. So that helps with the poem. The Girl in the Red Coat, for Mary. There is something about you sitting there in your red coat that touches my heart. Is it because we speak to each other out of our loneliness? Or could it be that you are my sister, that I, an only child, have never known till now? The next poem I want to do is a poem. Next poem I want to do is a poem that Mary Burke wrote about me. It's one of the most beautiful poems I've ever had written about me, and I've had a lot of poems written about me for which I'm very grateful, including people in the here that were at my birthday party that written poems about me, and you know who you are. I thank you, Patricia Black, John Tyndall. This is just, the poem is called For Roy by Mary Burke. As I gaze within the wishing well whirlpool depths of your eyes, I become the star of light, pinpointed within the utmost pupil center of your being. And the tears of love, laughter, and joy become childlike in their glistening upon the torn rose petals of your touch. This is my whole philosophy. This is my whole philosophy of life in a poem, and it's just called At Home in the World. And I've tinkered with this over the years. At home in the world. It is so good to be here, whole, complete. No more dissociation, alienation, fragmentation. Yesterweek I lay utterly broken, with no peace. Only jagged edges pointing inward, seeking the healing touch, being touched only by phantoms. Unreal, yet the pain was real. It encompassed me. The pain of emptiness, of hope shattered, lies believed, hypocrisy a cancer unchecked, growing like the population in dystopia. Lost, seeking release in my beloved, not finding, and coming unto nothingness, filling the hole in being with beer and tears, inadequate sacraments. Salvation came only when you touched me, renewed my spirit, gave me back myself. Wholeness, holiness, the left hand of God found his right hand, and once more energy flows in the electric circle of the cosmos, and I have come unto my own. This is a poem that I wrote on the way to the original Woodstock in New York in '69. And that was I had a phenomenal time there.
You were there, Roy?
I was there.
Oh my God.
Didn't you see the picture of me in Light? Didn't you see the picture of me in Light magazine? No, I'm just kidding. No, I was there, and a third of a million of us were there. And I spent most of my time trying to find my girlfriend, who was from Schenectady, New York. She was an artist. It was a festival of all of the arts. You wouldn't know that unless you'd read a book on Woodstock or talked to somebody that was there, because there was an adjudicated art show at Woodstock. And she knew I was coming. I was going with friends of mine from Toronto to Woodstock. But I didn't know, I thought it would be 10, 20,000 people maybe, like, a festival. Not a third of a million. And it was absolutely mind-boggling experience. I wrote this poem about Maureen. It's called How Many Lifetimes for Maureen, a woman that I deeply loved, wanted to marry, wanted to be my life partner. She had other ideas. Anyway, she broke up with me, broke my heart, and that's why I'm here now in front of you. She is a wonderful human being. I haven't seen her for years because she lives in the States and we haven't been able to keep in contact. But her name is Maureen O'Brien. And I thought of different women that I've known and loved, and I thought of how she brought everything together for me in terms of what a woman could be. How many lifetimes for Maureen? How many lifetimes have I lived? How many women have I known? One and many. Through it all, thousands of times I have lost and found myself. The self I found is complete in itself, yet reaches its highest completion in you. Through you I know the world wholly. With your eyes I see myself. With your ears I hear the sound of my one hand. With your touch I know my body, which is the diamond body of the Buddha, my Eve, my beloved mate, lost and found forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. And I just want to say, I want to be your friend too, okay? Because one of the things that impressed me, I've never heard you read before, is how deeply, obviously, Roy connects with people, how deeply you connect with everything. I do believe you've been everywhere. Huh?
I've been everywhere.
You've been everywhere.
I've been everywhere.
Okay, so we have time for a few questions. So would anyone like to ask a question?
Roy, I heard that there are no outhouses or portables for leaving oneself after that Woodstock, you know?
Well, let me tell you.
Is that true or not true? You have firsthand, historical.
You'd have to.
I'm hearing the question.
Oh yeah.
You wanted to know about the bathrooms at Woodstock?
On the lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. This is about, yeah.
No fart jokes. No.
You know what?
Fart jokes. I've got some fart jokes. Anyway, no, I won't.
Good.
Anyway, you heard the question. There were, but it would take you half an hour to an hour to use one. It was that way with food as well. I stood for an hour in line to get just something basic to eat. There was no water there. They brought the water in from Monticello in a truck, and I had to wait over an hour in line to get a cup of water. And the sun was burning down. Then it would rain heavily. Then the sun would come down again, and I was just dehydrated like mad. In fact, in the middle of the night, I was dehydrated. I had a bad asthma attack, and I got into some really great difficulties. And I never found Maureen.
Oh God. It sounds like Oktoberfest without the beer.
Another question for Roy, yes?
I was just wondering who would be your key influencers as a poet, other than probably Allen Ginsberg.
Actually, I knew Allen Ginsberg. I met Allen Ginsberg and talked to him and had a good conversation with him in Toronto at the Writer and Human Rights Conference. And around that time I met Lawrence Ferlinghetti as well. And Ted Hughes, the poet laureate of England, who was married to Sylvia Plath. Is that? Oh, and my influence. Okay. I mean, everywhere from a London, Ontario person who is a poet, who isn't thought of as a poet, but his name is Richard Morris Buck. He wrote a book called Cosmic Consciousness. His best friend was Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman has walked the streets of London. One summer they spent in the 1880s. And there's a movie actually made on their life called Beautiful Dreamers. Walt Whitman was very inspirational to me, as was Shakespeare, as was Keats. I mean, there's so many influences, so many wonderful poets out there. In terms of Canadian poets, Leonard Cohen, Alden Nolan, and poets right here. Really, some of Canada's finest poets are right in this gathering. So I won't mention any names. I don't want to embarrass anybody, or I don't want. But I really believe this. I really believe that there are so many wonderful poets in London, and I'm going to be hearing some that I haven't even met before, maybe later on.
Another question?
I've heard snippets of stories about you and Ronnie Hawkins and the band hanging out with them. What would be your favorite story that you could tell us about your time spent with them?
About Ronnie Hawkins,
Yes.
meeting him?
Or didn't you used to hang out with the band, I thought?
Yeah. Well,
Confess your sins.
do you know who we're talking about? Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks, and the band. They backed Bob Dylan.
Some of them are from London, actually.
In fact, well, one was from London. Garth Hudson was from London. Rick Denko was from Simcoe. Richard Manuel was from Stratford, and Lee Von Helm was from Arkansas. He was the only other person that was from out of Canada, as was Hawkins. And Robbie Robertson is still going strong. He's in Toronto. I hung out with him at different times, and I used to go down to the old brass rail. Any of you remember that, the brass rail days? Okay, what, 2 or 3, just a few, eh? And yeah, we had some wild parties in those days. And well, I don't know where to start. I don't want to. I'll just say that, I'll acknowledge that. And one of the best concerts I ever saw in my life was Bob Dylan and the band together in the Montreal Forum, when they were right on. They were just, that night they were just incredibly good. But do we have time for one more?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
How do you, I don't want to take too long.
I just want to say, Roy, you have an amazing memory. I am just surprised at all the things that you remember and how you are so inclusive with people. You just bring everybody in. He just brought everybody in this room tonight. Yeah, thank you.
Not only do I have a wonderful memory, but I had such an incredibly good memory. I can't think of a single thing I've ever forgotten. I do stand-up comedy too. I know I have to quit pretty soon because of the time factor. Because
What? But we don't want to lose you.
As Groucho Marx once said, time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana.
Heidi.
Roy, since you've been walking the streets so many decades and you know so much about London and the people, the way she said, that inclusiveness, have you noticed any changes over the years?
I notice all kinds of changes, good and bad. One thing I despair about, like, I'm a gerontologist, and I despair of so many older people saying that, talking about how things are changing. Young people today, they're just this, they're just that, they're put them down, and I really dislike that. So I know so many dedicated young people. In fact, I'm a member of a group called Occupy, the Occupy movement. And it hasn't disappeared. It's in a different form. It's changing, but it's still out there. And I was in July. I was at the London and Region Social Forum, and there's so many young people dedicated to changing the world, changing society. So in some ways things are getting better. Some ways getting worse. You know, I mean, even downtown London. I mean, it's picking up in a lot of ways, and that's a good thing that's happening. There's always, I mean, this is such a complex topic that I don't know. I could go on and on. I could talk to you about.
Do you have a favorite period, or is all periods your favorite?
Well, I guess in the 1960s, I had the opportunity to do things in London and Toronto and Montreal, like I marched with Martin Luther King against the war in Vietnam, in New York in '66, largest demonstration in the world at that time.
Wow.
And I was in Washington after the Jackson State killings and the Kent State killings, that Ohio, that Neil Young wrote a song about, and the invasion of Cambodia. So Washington was an armed camp. I've led demonstrations against the war in Vietnam. I participated in the things right up to the present day conflicts. I mean, they're still happening, what's going on in the world. And in some ways we can get very pessimistic, very gloomy about what's going on. But I believe in the importance of focusing on the possibilities and the good things, and then keeping as optimistic as we can. It's hard for me to do, it's hard for any of us to do when we hear the news, oh, another scandal, another bad thing, another terrible things are happening. Well, they are, but good things are happening too, and I tend to try to do what I can to focus on these good things, the good things about human beings, about London and so on, like my good friend does, Bill Paul.
Well, I hope you're not on the no-fly list.
I was in the Air Force. I was an instrument. Yeah, I took instrument technician technology.
No-fly list
No, I was in the Air
because
Force.
you've been such a controversial figure.
But I was in the Air Force. I've never flown. I'm scared of airplanes. But I was in the Air Force, a ground crew. So.
Well, like I said, he's been everywhere. Thank you, Roy. Thank you.
Shush. So are some only dollops the beachfront dumb, and supples it. Bouncing, buoy, blushing, and sterilized, I belie bubbles